today we're talking about just basic rundown, start to finish of cosplay, from picking a character to photo shoots and cons and the process you go through making it and performance, all that fun stuff. There we go.
This is us. She is a demon. I'm a robot.
Wow.
Yeah, so when I pick a costume, the first thing I do is obviously research. So I want to find out as much about the character as possible. Because in my case, like when I pick fabrics, I want to make sure it fits the character, and I don't know, it's just good to find as much as possible, I guess. It's kind of hard to explain, but
it's really good, especially if you want to enter comp, because they like that. Found that out earlier, so.
yeah.
There's nothing more to say on that.
Yeah, it's kind of boring. Cool. So this sort of leads on from the last point where if you do a lot of research about your character, you're going to get a better idea of what you're doing. So in my case, we use Silica for example. So she's from Sort Out Online, and I've just finished making her. And how do I explain this? So she is a Cancer, and so what I did is I made armor for her. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. Was I going to use foam? Was I going to use wobbler? And when I looked into the game and I was looking for all the stuff that she gets equipped with, most of the stuff said leather armor, so I was like, okay, it makes more sense to use leather, right? So that's what I ended up doing. But also, when you do like fantasy costumes, for example, I think it makes more sense to use more like glittery, elegant kind of feeling fabrics, because if you just use like a cotton or whatever, it's just not going to give you, it's going to be too weak, like it's not going to give you a proper fantasy feel. But it will just relates back to the character. Like if you're doing a school uniform, you'd want to use what people use for school uniforms. Or if you're a nurse, for example, we did nurse costumes. We researched what nurses wear. So we used some kind of caution in the end that you can wash easily, because that's what nurses use.
Yeah. I just pick pretty colours.
Yeah, she picks the pretty colours. Planning.
There's lots of Google your character name and your character design. You'll often get things like this, and you can see all the costumes from the different angles. So you don't miss out on things and go, how do I make it back to this costume?
Or you could be that person who picks like the artwork costume with no back, and then you have to draw it. Or shots. I did that once. I think what I do often is I sort of like draw out each piece of the costume so I know what I have to make. So for example, with Elizabeth, you'd have to make a dress, and then you'd have to make a garter belt, and you'd have to make an apron, and you have to make a bow. And if you like draw it out, you're going to be less confused later when you bought your fabric and you're staring at it like, where do I start? I don't know. And then you look back and you have like essentially a blueprint.
Yeah. This helps the process.
Yeah. Patterning. So, patterning. So the number one question I always get is, how do you alter a pattern? How do you make a pattern? And I could tell you all about it, but it'd probably take like a week. So, how do you pattern?
How I pattern? I stick things to myself. I literally grab the fabric and I go like this, and I map it out. If I need to shape it, I'll hold the fabric over me and pin it in, or I get old shirts and stuff that I already have, and I cut that up and I use that as reference, and I just copy where the sewn and cut things.
That's a pretty popular way of doing things. Like, just say you have a cosplay and you make a t-shirt, and you're like, where do I start? You can just go and buy a t-shirt that looks similar, take it apart, and then use that to make a pattern. That works. In my case, I was taught how to pattern make professionally, so I had a big set of blocks at home, which is the starting point, and you use that to make a pattern. So I have a bunch of those for a bunch of different garments, like bodices, and skirts, and dresses, pants. So what I do is I pick that up, and then I think, okay, how do I change this to make it look like what I want? Which is a very long process, and it's very hard to explain, it's very boring. But if you're starting out, just buy a pattern. The main thing is that you check the sizes right, because half the time it's very off.
Yeah, definitely. Do you have a question?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah. So did you make that, or did you like do it online somewhere?
So I made it. What I did is I grabbed a picture of the dragon, and then I sketched out the dragon profile, and then I was like, okay, how can I make this 3D? And then I started adding in like gutsits and stuff to make it 3D. It took ages, but somehow it turned out like that. I don't really know how. But a roll of newsprint or a bit of like cardstock. But you can also, like, what I use for that is, what's that stuff I got from the hospital?
Oh, my mum works at a hospital and all the medical stuff that gets wrapped up in it, they throw away the thing, and so she brings that home. So it's basically just scrap fabric that you can draw on and then cut out and then tear
But
up.
there's some other stuff I remember you mentioned, freezer paper? Yeah,
Crosscloth.
crosscloth, yeah.
Yes.
Even using calico is helpful because you can always cut out the paper afterwards and file it up and see if it works.
Anything that's not expensive,
Well, yeah.
you can make the freer the better.
I prefer to just use paper, or you can even just take different bunch of like newspapers if you have a solid enough. Okay, so this step kind of depends on how much fabric you buy and how much money you have. So in my case, you have your fabric, right? It has a salvage on each end, and one of them's the warm, one of them's the wet one. I can't remember right now, but you have grey lines in your patterns that go like this, and you need to match it up to your salvage. Otherwise, you're cutting it on the wrong side, and you may lose like stretch, or when you sew it, you might end up with a bunch of runs. So if you don't have a lot of fabric, just scrap that and just like put it all on how you can fit it. Like for example, our shoes, that fabric got discontinued, so I needed a metre and a half, and I kept screwing up my boot covers because they were hard to make. So in the end, I had to just do it how they fit. So how I would usually do it is I would have it set it that way and it that way, but I had no choice. But if you have that situation, you can also fuse it, so it's not going to damage the fabric when you sew it as well.
I just listened to her.
I mean, you're welcome to bullshit stuff. They work.
Bullshit working. Bullshit works. Alright.
Okay. You can start construction.
Because I'm smaller than a lot of op shop clothes, I tend to get those and I take them in until they're fitting the right way, and then I cut it up and use that for padding with the actual fabric, because it's just easier for me to do it that way, and that way if you fuck up you can just take it out and no one will see it.
Construction is kind of a hard thing to get into, but one thing I always mention to people who are starting sewing is always be consistent with your seam allowances. So if you have a really fat seam allowance and you press it open, it's still going to be really bulky, and then your fabric, like your bodice of whatever you're making, is not going to sit right. And then if you have it too thin, your costume's not going to last very long because it's just going to end up like gritting and pulling at the seams and coming apart. But I guess the main thing is there's always some way to fix things, and there's always new ways of doing stuff.
Edging's important. When you're sewing fabric, cover the edges, otherwise it will fall apart, and that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
Very bad.
Yeah, another thing I stress is when you're sewing darts, you need to make sure it's a centimetre away from your nipple, because if it's not, you're going to have a point there, and it's not a pretty look. I've done it before.
It's funny to look at though.
That's true. I mean, as long as you take your time and you Google what you're doing and you get a rough idea. And another good thing is obviously Googling if you want to know how to do something.
There's so many tutorials online. And you're allowed to screw up.
You are.
It's
You're allowed to
fun
make
screwing
mistakes.
up. Everyone screws up.
Why
It's
so
funny.
hard making cosplays?
Exactly.
I mean, you don't have to screw up. Like this dress, I cut it too short, so I had to do a facing on the inside so I could hem it, so it wasn't going to be a complete waste. But there you go. Everyone makes mistakes. Finishings. I hate finishings.
Pretty shiny.
Especially when you have to hand sew them. I'm out.
Shut up.
So finishings can be anything from trimmings or sequins, gems, painting, like binding.
It's the little things on the costume that you just do at the end, because if you have time, it'd be nice to have, but if you don't have time, that's fine. You've got the main thing done.
I think finishings is one way that you can interpret your costume and make it go on as well. So just say you had a costume where, let's get this up. Just say you wanted to make what she was making there. What's the character's name again?
Kaguya. You are happy with it?
Yeah. Well, that's the main thing.
That's what matters more than anything
Nobody else matters when it comes to cosplay. As long as you feel good about yourself and you feel
Screw everyone
confident.
else. You're more important.
Yeah. And there's our place. Trial-ons is so important. The amount of times I've been like, oh yeah, my costume's done, all good, and then I take it to the con and put it on and it falls apart. So I recommend trying it on, walk around, wear it, even if it's for a photo shoot, like wear it for like 4 hours, if anything falls off, you know it's going to fall apart, so just put it back on. Try to find a way of strengthening it. And also helps with makeup, because
Practice.
yeah.
If you're going to be moving and doing a skit in your costume, really wear it before you do the skit, otherwise things get very complicated very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of like just a small part, but it's just making sure things go smoothly.
And it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun wearing makeup, I reckon. Photo shoots are also a great part. So, photo shoots. Photo shoots are the kind of thing where you have to keep in mind you're working with another person and you need to make sure you give them as much respect as you can. You don't want to do anything that's going to waste their time, so you have to make sure you do all your poses and you practice your makeup, make sure your costume's finished before the photo shoot. Sometimes it's not, that's how it is, but I mean, only plan something if you're sure that you're going to be able to go through with it, because it's not really fair on other people.
Especially for paid photographers, because there are a lot of them who do amazing work. Sparkles are pretty. They deserve to be paid for the so much time and effort that goes into the editing as well as the photography, because they're taking time out of it. You just want to be as respectful as possible, because they want to show off your beautiful costume and your pretty face, and you want to show off their amazing skills on making sparkles and pretty.
For some photographers as well, you have to keep in mind that when you're working with them, you're taking their time away from other things that they could be doing that's going to keep them good as well.
Yeah.
So, just like make sure you have everything together, make sure you're all prepared, make sure you're ready a couple hours beforehand. We have some amazing photographers we work with and have worked with quite a few times. It's just a matter of communication and making sure that everyone's happy at the end of the day.
And yeah, have fun. It's fun, photo shoots, you get to roll around, you look pretty, and then you go back and you're like, that's not a dirt, that's actually me looking pretty.
And you can build so many good friendships with photographers as well. Like some of our best friends are some people who have taken photos with us.
They're lovely. They're not here, so.
Tim's amazing.
Performance.
Now this is where I'm going to leave it to her because I haven't noticed it before because I'm scared and I'm doing one on Monday, so watch it.
I danced for 14 years before I moved away and had to go to Wellington. But as you can see, I did dance skits. I've done 4 competitions, but 3 of them have all involved skits. When it comes to skits, there are different programs you can use. And for audio stuff, Audacity is free, which is good. You can download it from Mac or PC, and there's lots of tutorials on editing the voice and audio to have playing in the background. You can change the sort of file depending on the competition. You know, the overload is slightly different from the Zeta one and things like that.
You can also have videos as well. I think it's a lot of things like that's something that a lot of people don't really take advantage of, and it can be quite a good feature. There is one program that Alicia knows of that's super good to use.
It's called Filmora. It's one you can download online. You have to pay for it to get rid of the watermark, but
or if you go to Google, you can in YouTube you can find it.
Don't do it illegally.
No
illegal things.
But I haven't found any other like video software that has been free that's been overly useful.
I think you can download free ones for Mac. I don't know. I've never touched a Mac before.
Me neither.
Yeah, so videos are there. When it comes to skits and cosplay, in particular, do what you're comfortable with. Even if you love a character and they do point, but you don't know how to do it, don't put on point shoes and try and dance that. You will hurt yourself, or you will get nervous and then you'll regret the decision. You just have to do what you're comfortable with, even if it's just coming on stage and going like this for a couple minutes.
Yeah. I think the other thing about skits is that it's really hard to come up with a skit idea. Because you're thinking about all these thousands of people in the audience who probably haven't watched what you're from. So you have to somehow come up with some kind of idea that they're going to understand. So, I mean, sometimes it's good to be vague, sometimes you're doing some mainstream, it doesn't matter. But, I mean, at the end of the day, as long as you're happy with it and it's something you want to do, and you're getting your creative idea across, that's the most important. I can't really speak much about it.
Yeah. You can go either way, really. You can go full an unknown character that no one will know there, but you know the character and you want to make a pretty skit about them. Or you can just do something like memes and everyone knows about them. So
Well, yeah, memes.
make them laugh, that's always fun. But yeah, when you're having a skit, it is terrifying the first time you do it because there's just a bunch of people out there. But the general reaction whenever you do a skit, no matter how bad it is, no matter how many times you fall down, everyone is just happy that you tried because they're just like, I'm never doing that. And they're impressed that you
Yeah,
at least
I
went
think
through it.
I think a lot of people are just amazed at what people can get up and do on a stage in front of so many people. It's so scary. So if you know someone who's doing a skit, make sure to tell them that they're awesome and that they're going to be great because I think they need it.
And also plugging in the Cosplay Theatre, that's tomorrow. It's something that Jess is running and it's just for skits, there's no competition involved. You just go on there and you perform a skit for a small crowd like this and it's just a lovely thing to do. It's the play part of cosplay.
It's like she's going out of her way to organise it and I think it's really amazing that she was able to do that.
So come watch it next time, join in, do whatever you want. Chicken nuggets. I think that's about it for performance that I can talk about. So yeah.
Do you have any questions? Because I know that it's really hard to be specific with this kind of thing. So if you don't have something you want to know from either of us, feel free to chuck your hand up.
Are you guys able to stop being lazy?
Never. I have too many sequins to deal with. I continue to be amazing and sparkling until they're done.
I mean, I hope we help people. That's what I'm here for. I mean, I bet there's people here that had a cosplay before, I assume.
And everyone's experience is different, so you can talk to other people about it. They'll probably be like, oh no, those two don't know what they're talking about. Ignore them.
The main point is that we want to let you guys know that there's plenty of people out there who are going to support you, and it's not as scary as it seems. You just got to take your time.
Yes? Oh, that will cosplay. That's a hard.
I love everyone I cosplay. Maybe Metaru for me. She's from JRPG, nobody's played, but she's just like a really strong character who wants to do everything possible to save the country, and I think that's really great and amazing, so I appreciate it.
God. Favorite one. Probably Sakura from Naruto. She was my first cosplay, and I'm Naruto trash.
Yeah.
So every Naruto character I do, I'm just like, Naruto. I love myself. Because, yeah, Naruto's life. Okay. Anything else? Yeah.
I think a good one that I would ask is I see a lot of really talented different efforts in cosplay here now. As someone who would be coming into it fresh, started off with research, what would be considered a reasonable amount of research to be really passionate about a particular character?
Depending on the complexity of the character, because I know some people are just like, I want to cosplay that Halo guy, and it's the first thing they've ever made. That's very scary, but like the internet is wonderful and full of tutorials. So depending on the character, some characters even have step-by-step tutorials in construction that people have kindly put up on Pinterest or DeviantArt or something like that. You can just Google character tutorial. Sometimes they'll pop up, sometimes you just have to figure it out yourself or ask friends.
I think what I'd recommend, because it's a good spot.
Thank you.
I would tell you first thing I do when I'm thinking about cosplaying something, is apart from looking at reference images, is look at other cosplayers and see how they've done it. Because it's going to give you a really good idea of how hard it's going to be or what it's going to end up looking like, or maybe you can zoom in and look at all the different details. It's what I did with Alyssa because it was probably my hardest cosplay I've ever made. And it was just looking at other people to see how they made it and see what I can mimic or what I should do. But yeah, I think just like learning as much as you can about the character is going to give you a really good basis.
Or you can just buy it. It's
Oh,
easy.
that's true. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with buying your cosplay because I do that all the time. It's really good if you need to save time or you're just not ready to make a cosplay because you shouldn't let someone say
Or you're
you should make it. Lazy.
Just don't enter a contest with it.
Yeah.
Don't enter a contest with a board
Just-
competition. They'll just be like, no.
Just be honest about buying it.
Yeah.
I hope being honest about it.
They're fun, and sometimes the war costumes are really pretty, so you just want to buy them.
That's true. There's a lot of amazing costumes on Taobao if you ever want to look for places like cosplay.
Or just steal your friends.
Yeah.
Anything else? Yeah.
Any tips on wig buying and styling?
Okay, fun fact, the wig I'm wearing was $7. You don't need to spend a lot on a wig for it to look okay. You just have to make sure you know that it fits and that it's going to work for what you're using it for. I got this off Taobao, off a shop, and I was like, oh, I don't know what it's going to end up being like. It was an Umi from Love Live wig. But I had bought from that shop before, so I knew it was going to be okay. But it ended up being really thick and really nice. And even on eBay, there was a shop that I found recently that had wigs for 10 NZD. And I was thinking, oh, they're going to be terrible. We got them, and they were pretty much the same as what she's wearing now. So you don't have to spend heaps. You're more than welcome to as well. It's just as long as you shop around, you look at the
reviews,
the feedback, and the reference.
Especially on like AliExpress is another one that you can use.
Yeah.
When people leave photo comments of the wigs they've bought, you can tell the quality in different lighting.
Yeah.
Which is always really good. Got one for $12 and it's awesome. But yeah, cheap doesn't mean bad. It means cheap.
And it's always make you can wear. If you can't afford to spend heaps on like an expensive wig, you can always buy two of the same wig and put them together as well.
It's for wig styling. That's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
So maybe buy like party shop $5 wigs, $3 wigs off eBay or something. Get them, play around with cutting, learning about washing the wigs is important. There are ways to get shines out of wigs. If you just want to buy a party store wig, you soak that for 5 days in fabric softener and the shine will go away. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Science. But yeah, that's just trial and error for wig styling. Really. Any other questions?
Have you gone back and redone the cosplay before?
I remade the same costume 3 times because I wasn't happy with it completely from scratch. And that was Renaud from Final Fantasy VIII. She's honestly one of my favorite characters after me to do. And she's a costume where it's really hard to get it right because she's wearing this knit and it's ripped. And unless you knit it yourself, you're not going to be able to find it and have it look the way you want. So as I progressed with cosplay, got better at sewing, I was like, oh, I want to give that a go. I want to give it a go again just to.
You look at your first
Do
cosplays
better.
and you're just like, oh, I remember how cute and newbie I was. I want to do it better. And then you can just comparison photographs and you developing is always fun to look at. I love looking at them. It's just a self-confidence thing, so you can see yourself improving, even if you don't see it at the time. Look at like photos from 3 years ago and just be like, oh, there's a noob. It's a lovely feeling. Any other questions? Yeah. Excellent.
Cool. Just before we finish,
Okay.
I just want to say thank you to someone who just arrived.
That's
Hello,
Tim.
Mr. Tim.
That's
He's
Tim.
been such an amazing supportive photographer and
Stand up,
friend
Tim.
of us throughout the whole thing. You're amazing.
He's done so many photo shoots. He took this picture of the moose. He's done so many photo shoots for us.
He
And
just given so much of his time to us, and that's one thing about cosplay. You meet so many friends and so many wonderful photographers, and you're probably going to be friends with them for years.
I loved this one.
Yeah.
And it's great, but I'm leaving. Sorry.
Bye.
Bye.
But yeah, that's one thing. It is about costumes, but it is also a social thing, and you get to meet so many people.
You meet nerds. You want to dress up like a nerd. You'll meet other nerds who want to dress up like a nerd. And friendship is born.
It's worth it, and it's so creative and fun. So if you're thinking about getting into it, definitely have a bit of a Google and do it and join us.
Don't be afraid to talk to cosplayers walking around if you want a photo of them. Generally, people are just happy because you like the costume that they put so much effort into.
Yeah.
But yeah, so friendship is magic. Okay,
All right.
that's it.
Cool. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.